We are we are so excited to have Joledo, who is a seasoned expert in driving business growth, to share his insights on strategic partnerships that can catapult your business to new heights in Africa. Get ready to learn how to navigate complex markets, build game-changing partnerships, and unlock unprecedented opportunities. So with that said, I am so happy to tell you a little bit about who Oye is. Oyo is a results-driven country director and business development manager with a proven track record of driving growth through strategic partnerships, innovative product launches, and effective marketing initiatives. With expertise in building strong relationships with key stakeholders, including government officials and industry leaders, Oye excels at creating win-win scenarios and unlocking new market opportunities. Some of his achievements include launching a successful tech solution with 7,000 signups and revenue generation within 4 months. He's also onboarding 4,000 tech talent and establishing partnership with industry key players, achieving 50% and 60% year-over-year revenue growth through business development initiatives, fostering a thriving work environment and winning the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, and not forgetting his work with startups in Nigeria. So Oye is passionate about leveraging his expertise to drive growth in dynamic and results-oriented environments. Oye, so happy to have you here. Thank you for your time. And I am excited to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. It's such a privilege. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So with that extensive and amazing background, I know our viewers and listeners are in for a treat because you have tried and tested all the various scenarios that can help businesses thrive in Africa. So the first question I have for you is, what is business development and what sparked your interest in business development in Africa?
Okay, honestly, I would say that, what sparked my interest in Africa was because pretty much I was here, grew up in Nigeria, came from a very modest background, parents that worked for the government. And back then, it was always a struggle about paying bills and helping other people in the community, whilst also they are trying to cater for their own kids. So I kept on asking myself, I was like, oh, okay, would I continue in this circle of working for government for not such a good amount of money and struggle to help others? So my interest initially was, oh, how do I create those businesses that can make profit and take a percentage of that profit and give back to communities? So it wasn't from a place of, oh, I wanted to be Elon Musk and super rich, or Bill Gates and super wealthy. I initially just wanted to give back to community, but I wanted to give back in a way that is sustainable and in a way that, kind of just empowers more people. So that was how I got into developing businesses in Africa. And currently we have developed over 7 businesses that are thriving, some ag and some in logistics. But it's just been like really a journey of self-discovery for myself. So for me, how I look at business development is just providing services and products that customers need, and kind of putting the data, the initiative, the time, the knowledge in developing those services, and making sure that the businesses work. So I would stop here and allow you to probably ask me more questions before I just
love
go
it.
on.
I love it. You and I were served as judges, or at least I served as a judge on the startup competition you had with startups in Nigeria. And some of the questions that many of the investors kept asking is, what opportunities or what are some of the opportunities and challenges in doing business in Africa? So, since you grew up in Nigeria, you've lived in the UK, you've worked in the UK and back in Nigeria, I want to ask you, what are some of the opportunities and challenges you see in building strategic partnerships for business growth in Africa?
Yeah, so because it's still an emerging market, Africa, right? We need to understand. I mean, just today we joked when we started this call that internet needs to be fixed on the continent. So just that just sets your perspective of some of the problems, the real life situations, and the real life circumstances that businesses have to, cater to on the continent, but also the real life opportunities. So let me give you a concrete, because this is like a practical sense. Let me give you a concrete, a fair share, maybe 30% of Nigerians now are moving to Starlinks, right? There's an opportunity for internet, or there's a gap, and Elon Musk is feeling that. So it's an emerging market. After the COVID, a lot of people started to realize that there were
Oh, yeah,
opportunities.
you're
Well,
mute. Okay.
oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Can
hear
you?
you. Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's also a very diverse consumer base, right? What you find out in Nigeria is working. Most likely in Ghana, it may be slightly different, and in South Africa. So you need to prepare yourself that, oh, this is a diverse consumer base, right? If you find success in Nigeria, don't just imagine that success will be the same thing you find in South Africa. And most times when we develop businesses on the continent and we are thinking about partnerships, we're looking at what mutually aligns, the values that aligns, right? Then also we are also thinking about, access to resources. A lot of times people just speak about businesses, but really many businesses in Africa thrive or fail because they do not have access to resources to scale, to build. Do you understand? They are taking a loan for 20%, right? Over 20% interest. That is crazy. Like, when do you plan to break even? And plus that, you have no insurance. So many peculiarities that you need to work with. Then of course there are also the policies on the continent that are really important now. There's the AFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, which helps businesses to thrive and to collaborate, but that is still being built on the continent. And some of the challenges, I would say, just from my experiences, it still boils down to the regulatory framework. So many times you see that you would have to deal with regulatory in Kenya, deal with regulatory framework in Nigeria, deal with regulatory framework in Ghana. So, when I worked in the fintech space, we had different lawyers for different zones, right?
Mhm.
Because we were transferring money, and it was just different across zones. Then, of course, the infrastructure deficit that we have already spoken about, that is a that is a it's a government thing. Many of this infrastructure is not something that we can carry by ourselves. Then of course some of another challenge is the cultural differences. In certain places in Africa, they are still of the mindset that, oh, okay, woman leading a business is frowned at. But in my organization, four of the companies that we have founded is led by women. So many times I'll have to remind them that, see, do not look at their faces. You know what they are saying, but we came here to do business and we cannot be bothered. So these are some of the challenges just off the top of my head. And of course, in some African places like Congo, because I remember there was a time that some people wanted to establish some mining of minerals, but there's that political instability. And of course, every now and then, governments and, um and safety of people doing business is they have challenges with that. So I think these are some of the challenges when you're thinking about partnerships on the continent that you need to think about. But also, one of the few things that is beneficial is that Africa is big on, technological leapfrogging. So just give them small internet, just give them a phone and data. They'll build you an M-Pesa, right? They'll build you an online wallet. They'll build you fintech solutions. Give
I
them,
love that. I
yeah,
love
give,
that, Oye. But
yeah,
you hit on something that many people, even in the Western world, some of the challenges that women still face. I know my partner and sister will tell you, you go to a place and they're like, "Are you here for the boss?" And when you tell them you are the boss, they look at you like a woman leading the business. It doesn't happen. And it's
yeah,
even worse in the tech space because, when they think, many people think tech, they think male. So how is a woman coming in and saying that I'm in charge of this? And then you mentioned some of the cultural nuances because some of the cultural shocks, right? Whether you are doing business in Nigeria is different from doing business in Ghana. Even the work ethics might be different. So people coming in to do business in Africa definitely need to be mindful of all these challenges or all these differences because I know there's a joke that somebody went to, I won't mention the country, and for a meeting, and they said, let's go have lunch, let's go for drinks. And this person
yeah,
was like, all business, like, let's have the business and go. And that's the
yeah.
African mindset. Let's go, 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 go. And these people want to have a drink, want to eat, go for it. It doesn't happen. So I like how you mentioned that businesses have to be mindful of some of these cultural nuances and regulatory requirements in different African
Policies.
countries. I'm going to pivot and ask about collaboration because many people just jump in blindly, like, oh, I have the money, let me go. And it doesn't work like that. So, how do you or help our viewers and people thinking of investing in Africa help them think about how to identify potential partners and determine, mutually beneficial collaboration because getting the right person is also a difficult one, right?
So sorry, I didn't get that question again.
Yeah, so help our viewers understand how they can identify
Okay.
potential, I would say legitimate potential partners in Africa.
Okay, so I would say it all starts from your market research, right? You'll be stunned how much information you can get on the internet. People don't know, but a credible LinkedIn page, is even the start of your journey, right? So many times, people, I may have been at meetings where people said, go like, oh, I was in Ethiopia and somebody mentioned your name. And I'm like, I wasn't in that meeting. What's going on in Ethiopia? Right? But it's just that credibility, right?
Yeah.
That not falsifying data, really telling people as it is, right? And showing. So even if you are not as big as you want to be, right, you can always project where you are in a way that people understand where you are trying to go, right? So I think, for me, when I'm thinking about collaboration, I'm already checking that person's socials out. I'm checking about doing a market research about what that person has done on the continent. I'm getting local insights, industrial analysis, so there's a lot of work that goes before we just start reaching out to people for collaborations. Even as we speak on this call, I still have messages dropping in my phone and, Founders Connect, Founders Friday, group of founders around Nigeria want to collaborate too. But it all starts with first doing your research. Do you guys align in values? What have you guys achieved? What are some of the challenges that you guys
I know whilst we're waiting for Oye.
Are you heading towards the Okay, okay. So I'm also very big on networking, right? I remember Slava and we met at met through networking,
I
right?
see.
We really like he knows Slava, Matt, all of them. I'm very big about networking, but networking that is also not because you want something from it. It's because you want to learn, right? from them. It's networking that because both of you are mutually beneficial, but not just. And when it comes to Africa, many of our partners from US, one of the few things they say about us is the fact that we make them feel like family. So it's not just networking because, oh, okay, once we do that business with you, we are done. We can care less. You have paid for the service. No. How do we help you achieve your goals? So I always suggest to people that, attend industry events. Go for those events and don't go with the mindset that you are just going to speak to this, and this person, because you never know who you would meet there. Do not stereotype anyone, right? Then, of course, local business associations. There are business associations in Nigeria, in South Africa that coincidentally, I was speaking to a friend in South Africa, and she immediately I told her what we were trying to build. She was just like, "Oh, let me get the ambassador on the line." So I was like, oh, look at that. I couldn't get the ambassador in Nigeria, but in South Africa, they are getting me to the ambassador, right? So these are some of the things. Then leveraging technology, right? Online platforms, as I said, then always assess your compatibility. There are some people that they might not be the best partners for you, right? Their motives for doing the business might be different from yours. That doesn't mean they are evil. It just means that maybe you are not just aligned. And I don't think you should feel guilty if you lose one or two partners or if you lose one of two people that you think, right? But the point is you need to assess it. Do you have shared values and goals, right? Then sometimes it's also good to kind of just know where they are in their company financially, right? If that data is public knowledge, then access it so that you are not getting into a meeting thinking this person is solid and this person will meet up to his own part of the bargain, and that person is deep in loans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh
Yeah.
no, you did not tell me about this part, right? That part is then of course always try to do pilot projects. Don't go all in. If you plan to do maybe $1 million, I'll say, okay, do maybe like a 10K, 15K test, or even a 20,000 test together. See if that person meets up to everything that you guys listed to achieve. And if that person does, then you can now scale up, but don't just jump in. Those are some of my suggestions. And of
Those are great suggestions. And I will say, Oye, when we told our audience, you have lived
course, I said
and
focus
walked
on
the
mutual
talk.
follow collaborations.
Yeah, and I know you were a little off on the internet for a bit, so I was just telling our audience that when we told them we have you on, because you really walk the talk, we meant business because you have lived it, you have worked it, and you know how strategic partnership and what it means to have a legitimate strategic partnership in Africa. You mentioned a few things about that social media stuff where for me, like even before we hire people, I check your social media platform. Who
Yeah,
are you friends with? And even when people reach out and say, I want to be friends with you, I check their social media. I'm like, if a potential partner is looking for me, do I want them to associate me with this person? For many occasions, I decline to be friends with people. So
yeah,
these are things that people don't think about. And also what you post on social media, whether as an employee or as a business person, all these things
absolutely.
are important. So thank you for those mindful and powerful insights. We're going to take a short break to acknowledge our sponsors and then definitely come back with more questions. But I'd like to say thank you to you once again, Oye, um, Country Director for Social Good Fund in Nigeria. So all the amazing work that you're doing in Nigeria, I really want to say thank you and keep up the good work, especially with the startups, because that is the lifeline of the continent. Um, for our other sponsors, we do have Tech Hub, of course. We have our upcoming or annual Tech Guru Meetup event. So that's coming up in Ghana on the 19th. And oh yeah, I know we're going to be doing something with Nigeria, so I won't spoil it. We're going to talk about how Tech Guru Meetup and the amazing work we're doing in Nigeria, how we could partner. And then, of course, we have our GH Accommodation. This is a company focused on providing convenient, reliable accommodation to students, giving both students, parents, and also the property managers the peace of mind knowing they all have the right people in their premises. Of course, our foundation, because of the social good fund that OAU are coming from, we also are being sponsored by our Tech for All, which is focused on providing technology for all people of all walks of life, regardless of their background. And we have Mavis Inspires. It's also a syndicated program being hosted by a member of our board and being sponsored by them. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And we will go back into our questions with Oye. So Oye, if you've just joined us, anyone, if you just joined us, we are talking about unlocking Africa's potential, strategic partnership for business growth and expansion. And we are so fortunate to have Oyewole-Joledo, who is the country director for Social Good Fund in Nigeria, to share his insights. All right, so we have 3 questions coming from the audience. So before I go there, I have another question for you. And I know the internet issue has been a program, so that's one of the things people think about, because to be successful as a business person, you need good line of communication, transportation, and all that. In Africa, we know internet continues to be a challenge. But how do you think, or what do you think globalization and digitalization can be leveraged to drive business growth and economic development in Africa?
Yeah, so honestly, this is like a huge question. I think you should be asking one of the government ministers, but since I'm here, I would try to do my best. So I'll just say digitalization breaks the monopoly of geography, right? You can go into somewhere else through the internet and get your goods and services and all that. But really, I think it helps with access to global markets, right? I know there are a lot of people that are doing businesses in Africa and selling everywhere in the world, right? Yes, right now on the continent, but I don't believe it's going to consistently be a problem eventually at some point, some sort of technology. So take for instance, back then about 20 years ago, we barely had um telephones and cell phones for individuals. But now, even the kid on the street, right? Even the kid in secondary schools have telephones, right? So is that process, is that gradual process, right? So I would say that with digitalization and globalization, you can access global markets. This is really helpful for businesses, especially businesses that take for instance, you are working in Nigeria, but you can offer graphics design or coding, or you need that internet, but this is what digitalization helps foster. You can work in any company across the world once you understand the cultural nuances. I think you'd be able to survive. And I do agree with that example you gave of when somebody was like, oh, let's go and grab a drink, and the other person is looking. It's happened to several people. In fact, some people don't even smile at that joke. They're like, oh, why are we stopping work entirely? We want to work, but it's just part of the culture. Then of course it helps with technological adoption and innovation, right? I already mentioned about M-Pesa. That is still built on some sort of internet infrastructure. It's still important to have that internet, But I know that also some of the things that are coming up on the continent from UNDP is startup hubs. There are startup hubs in South Africa that have great fiber optics internet, and even in our own tech hub here in Nigeria, the Respect Tech Hub, if I was there, it would have been great fiber optics internet, but I was just coming from a meeting. But all those types of things helps, for businesses, because businesses can just rent those spaces and, do their businesses from there, which is really important. But of course, it also improves efficiency and productivity. That's just the truth, right? I'm just thinking about how many businesses that we run currently, and almost all of them are digitally inclined businesses. We just launched a new app, but
Mhm.
without the internet, it's going to be hard for that app to work,
Yeah.
right? But that app helps connect you to emergency. It's called Rescue Tap. It's on the App Store and the Play Store, but it helps
Okay.
connect you with emergency care when you have
Mhm.
emergencies, right? So you can check it up. You could be in a school shooting and you just tap a button. And its use case is not just Africa. Its use cases extends to UK, it extends to US, but it's built locally here in Nigeria. And so we should be proud of it, right? So these are some of the things that digitalization helps, and of course you can use it to develop your skills. I'll always say it, your business would grow as much as you grow. That's my own view. The more you learn, the more you earn. I mean, everybody knows that. So these are some of the things I think digitalization helps with. And of course, because of how globalization exists, I did my PhD in international business, and some of the few things I kept on seeing was the differences that exist when people want to scale businesses on the continent versus when you want to scale it across the world, right? When you think about some of the political, the economical, the social, the technological, the and the legal differences that exist. But I think globalization is something that most Africans are beginning to learn to embrace. You can see it in the amount of seed fundings and the amount of funding rounds that Africans are getting into now. But these are some of the things that, with digitalization and globalization, Africans are already embracing. It's whether they're embracing it at scale, that has been always the conversation. And, that has been where personally I feel the government needs to kind of bridge that gap to just give them access to more resources, tools to thrive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and one of the challenges, I mean, we have experienced this internet issue with our conversation. So many
Yeah.
companies coming, especially from outside of Africa, they worry about that. And of course, things have far improved. So now you also have AI that is changing the way people do business. It's funny, we were interviewing somebody. The person had applied for a role that we had, and the person sent an AI. He didn't even show up for the job. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, it doesn't work with this company. We are a tech company, but we're not interviewing the AI on your behalf. So all these things are there. And then recently, even Amazon announced that because of AI, they're going to leverage AI more. And so some of their workforce will be. So my question to you is, are there any other emerging trends or technology that you believe will shape the future of business growth and partnership in Africa? Because Africa, we are embracing, but internet communication continues to be a challenge. So, what are your thoughts there?
So I'm looking at a lot of businesses that would also, thrive under the USSD format. That's the platforms that pretty much responses. Um, yeah. So, and I'm also looking at, a lot of people were tilting towards fintech before. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
A lot of people
yeah.
are tilting towards fintech, but a lot of people are in the fintech space now. There's Lemonade Finance, there's M-Pesa, there's Furtherwave. There are so many people in the fintech space. But one one thing people are kind of missing is the security, right? Just some weeks ago, we had some of the worst challenges in terms of people losing their lives in a state in Nigeria. And so a lot of people are now becoming aware that safety is something that they need to take seriously. So even when I said we built the Rescue Tap app, it's from the place of preventing some of these challenges that we are seeing on the continent, whether it's South Africa and all that. So I think, a lot of technology would start to infuse AI, but also provide you with maybe health information, provide you with security information. And that's where I want a lot of people to start thinking about, like, oh, how do we create solutions to keep the person in Congo out of harm's way, or keep the person in Nigeria out of harm's way, or keep the student learning better and the student doesn't need to go to school. So we are building another, we call it our own version of some of the online trainings and universities that exist around the world, but it's localized for Africa. It's called EduSwitch, that just gives students the ability to apply with. In US, you can have your main degree when you are graduating from school and have like maybe something secondary, right? In
Yeah.
Africa, we do not have that. So us, we are building that solution that when you're done with school, you can say, I'm done. I read medicine, but I also have cybersecurity, a certificate in cybersecurity. So it opens you up to more opportunities. So for me, if somebody's coming to Africa and is thinking about investing, or thinking about what is coming, I'll say look at the security space, the safety space, the health space, right? The
Yes.
agricultural space. Don't be too enthused, and don't be too carried away with the fintech space. It might be slowing down soon because there are so many people playing in that space. So
Saturated.
that'll be my suggestion. Yeah.
Cool. So we have I'm going to have, because of time, two questions that came in. And for the audience, if anybody has a question, please let me know. You can raise your hand or put it in the chat. But these are the two questions that we've pulled from the chat so far. The first one is, the person is asking, what are some key considerations for businesses looking to expand into new African markets? So, what are some of the key considerations? If you can give us one or two considerations, that would be helpful.
Okay, so for me, I'll say is to understand local problems, like understand the problem better than the doctor understands his patient, because Africa is unforgiving in business. That's what I used to say, right? You have to get it right. You don't imagine that, oh, just because you read up something on ChatGPT about Africa, that you know Africa. Understand the problems that the people, and that is important, and that's why it's always great to speak with the real customers that you want to serve, right? If you can't get there, get a team, a local team that can carry out those surveys, those research, right? When you're also speaking to those people, also ask yourself, who is going to pay for this service that I'm about to, create a product or service for? Who is going to pay for it, right? Is this from a compassionate place where I'm thinking my funding will come from some sort of non-profit organization abroad? If that's your model, probably that's different, right? But if your model is that people are going to pay for it, you have to find a way. And Africa is very cultural, right? So you can be asking a customer and saying, oh, will you pay for this? And that customer is in your office, right? That customer in your office will tell you, yes, yes, I will pay for this. But once he leaves your office, he's like, nah, that's like the last stuff I'm going to pay for in my whole life. So you need to be very, very aware, because a lot of times people are saying, oh, they are doing a survey. I'm asking them, how did you carry out your market survey? They're like, oh, we invited them over to ours. So we had a conversation over drinks and tea. I'm like, you've made them too comfortable. They will never tell you the truth. It's just not possible. They will not want to break your heart, right? So I
Yeah.
always say work with local partners that understand the local context of the service or the product that you're trying to offer, right? And prioritize relationship building over speed, right? It's a slow, finicky process. If you think you're going to shove a product or a service down an African man's throat, I mean, even anybody else, we just want to know that it's authentic, that you really care about this problem to want to solve it. And so those are some of my suggestions when you are thinking about, building or, considering doing business in Africa. Look for local partners. I'll reiterate, look for local partners. As much as you might have, knowledge, publications, and all that, but please look for local partners because that can really be what will make or mar your business. Any of the African countries that I'm taking any business to, I look for credible people. I look for credible people, people that have a track record of their work, and people that care about the issue as much as I do. Yes.
I like that. And you said this at the beginning of our conversation that make sure that you are researching the country that you are going to, because you can't just go in blindly or take
Yeah.
somebody's word for it. You really have to do the research. So thank you so much for it. Now I'm going to ask you for your final words of wisdom on the topic. And then I have a rapid fire for you. So I won't share the question about your final words on the actual topic that we've been talking about, and what advice would you give to entrepreneurs or businesses looking to establish strategic partnerships in Africa? Africa is ready for business. Africa is open.
Yeah.
The continent is open. But what are some of the advice that you have for them?
Okay, so I'll first say equity and respect, right? Equity and respect, right? You are not their savior, right? You are like co-laborers, if not anything. So, a lot of times people come to Africa and they're just like, oh, we'll solve your problems, and but they also want to impute to the solution that you're creating, right? So I'll say equity and respect. And if you are taking away some sort of benefit, look for a way to give back, right? That's one way we found a lot of success. We did businesses and we created and we built community schools for the community. So that school gives over 250 kids scholarships through our humanitarian arm of our business, right? So, there needs to be that feel of, oh, you're making profit, but you're also giving back, because it's not all of them that, will be at the same level. Then, of course, lead with value, not desperation. Lead with value, right? Don't I'll keep saying it. Don't try and shove things into people's throat and let them lead with value. Like, this is valuable to you. This is why I think it would help you. Let them test it. Let them give you feedback. Iterate. Make changes. And be clear about what you bring to the table, right? Because anything you leave ambiguous in Africa, they'll fill it with their imagination. So if you say, oh, I'm going to give this community access to solar powered lamps and everything, and you don't mention the total number of lamps you're going to give, trust me, they're going to expect 100,000. So the truth is, right partnerships will not just grow your business, really, right? It eventually builds credibility because if, like, for instance, you're coming to on the continent and they see somebody that has a very good, credible social status, it also lends credibility to your own business. So look for people on the continent that are credible and partner with them. They might be challenging to get to be part of your business and to trust you, but I will tell you that the returns on that effort will be something that you'd be super proud of, and it would also affect your profit. I remember many companies in the US back then. I think about three companies when they were coming to Africa, they would just call me from nowhere and go like, somebody mentioned your name. Somebody said you will tell them the truth if this business is going to work in Nigeria or not. And I tell you truthfully, after doing the feasibility study, market survey, and all the financial projections, I would advise based on what I see on those in those studies if that business is going to work or not. I will not just say, oh, yes, come to Africa. No, I will tell you honestly. And I can also tell you, oh, you can pivot this way or you can modify the model this way or that way to make sure that it's more localized and serves more people and, it's more sustainable. So I'll leave it at there. Those are my suggestions.
No, those are wonderful. And there's a saying in the US that the numbers doesn't lie, right? It's the data is the
Yeah.
you can't play with the data. So thank you for that. We had another question just come in. So I'm gonna read it unless Gloria wants to ask it. But the question is, how can startups or early career professionals like myself, so this is from the person, position ourselves to benefit from strategic partnerships in the tech ecosystem?
Yeah, so I'll say it depends on where you are in your journey, right? So you have to be honest, right? If you've built nothing before, it's going to be hard to have a conversation with somebody that has built tons of things, right? So there are a lot of free events, tech startup events, virtually and in person, that you can be part of, right? I usually say this: if you want to build something and you don't have such a huge track record, go to some of these events. You might find a co-founder there. You might find somebody that is interested in building what you are interested in building, right? And also, I noticed this thing, especially on the continent. A lot of people that are getting into the tech ecosystem are always like, oh, I can't share my idea with anyone. Nobody else has this idea, and I don't want to share it because somebody else will grab it. Guess what? We are 6.5 billion or 8.5 billion people
Mhm.
in the world.
Yeah.
Somebody is thinking about the idea right now. I've even seen people that go as far as going like, oh no, I can't give equity of a company that they haven't created. So when you're thinking about partnerships, you need to ask yourself, you need to be vulnerable enough. Do I have all the resources I need, right, to achieve what I need to achieve? So who are the people that can help me achieve these things? Now, when I find those guys, what is going to be the motivation for them to be part of the tech solution or product or business that you want to start? If you want to give them equity, don't feel bad giving equity to something that you're not sure will succeed or would, don't feel bad. Just, ask yourself, what is that person going to contribute to the tech development, right? Or to the business that you guys want to go into. But I always
Oh,
see it,
yeah. She has a follow-up that says,
okay.
what is the role of mentorship in successful strategic partnerships for young professionals?
So I would say this honestly, right? I found more mentors outside Africa than I found in Africa. Why? Because a lot of mentors in Africa have been burnt by their mentees, right? So we have to be careful, right? So I mean, even I myself, if you ask me for mentorship, I'm like, is there a way I can escape out of this? But because really, real true mentors is like a full-time job if it's really a mentor that wants to mentor you in Africa. So I'll say mentorship is important in terms of growth, development, startup, launch, ideation phase, incubation phase, and maybe at the scaling phase. It's super important, but finding the right mentor is even more important. And that's what I would say about mentorship. Yeah.
Okay, and last question came, and the question is, um, I know so many people who have the resources to invest in Africa, but are scared due to many stories from people that have tried before and failed, especially due to theft from employees. So people want to invest, but you know. So what's your take on that?
So I would say yes, 100%. There's always going to be fears. You can only try to mitigate some of those fears. I mean, even if it's theft from employees, you can like for us, all our facilities, even as I speak to you on my phones, all of them have CCTV cameras that are connected to an app that just pretty much shows me what's happening part-time in the office. And even the head of security also has that installed. So the truth is, there are some of these challenges that exist, but that doesn't stop you, or that doesn't, say that they aren't out of the 20 or so challenges of that sort. There could be 80 more businesses that are not having those challenges because they've put structures that mitigates against that, right? Another thing you can do is look for companies that are thriving and just learn from the systems that they already know about or the systems that they already deploy in their companies so that you can mitigate against some of these things. Investing in Africa is not as hard, as you think, but look for credible people. I keep saying, look for credible people on the ground that can help handhold you on how to handle those challenges.
Awesome. So we will take a quick break and then I'm going to ask you the rapid fire. So very quickly, just to share some of our ongoing events. We have, since we've been talking about pitches and how to do business in Africa, we have a startup pitch competition which is ongoing now. It actually ends at the end of June. And then we also have the hackathon event ongoing now. So if you are thinking of starting your own business, well, if you already have the business in place, this is a good platform to really go in and apply. You never know where it will land you. And I know Oye did have one in Nigeria where I had the opportunity to judge some of the startups. So Oye, you're going to have to return the favor by being a judge on ours as well. And of course, we have the hackathon. So definitely to learn more about these things, go to our website at www.techhubafrica.org. And you could also follow us on our various social media platforms to learn more about some of the exciting stuff that we have ongoing between now and the end of the year. So thank you for that. And Oye, thank you for the insightful conversation on strategic business partnership in Africa. Now I want to have our audience learn a little bit about you and who you are. So I'm going to start. And these are like, don't think too much about it, but quick questions, 1 or 2 words. What was your first job? Come on.
Civil servant, government
Oh,
civil,
civil servant?
government civil servant.
Civil servant. Okay.
Yes.
How many text messages do you send in a day? How many text messages do you send in a
Oh
day?
my God. Tons, like tons,
Give a
100%.
number.
I would
Give a
say maybe
number.
like 200, 300.
Oh my goodness. All these
I'll give
millennials.
you a range, 200, 300.
All right. What's your hidden talent?
Basketball.
And what are you most looking
Basketball.
forward to? Basketball. What are you most looking forward to
A
today?
vacation.
The vacation. Me too. I need a vacation. And now,
100%.
since you are from Nigeria, I'm going to ask the most important question for today. Ghana jollof or Nigerian jollof?
Nigerian jollof
Oh,
all
come
day.
on. It has to be Ghana jollof. But thank you, Oye. Thank you so much for humoring me, and thank you so much for your time and for that valuable insight on how investors and people in the diaspora can do business in Africa. We hope today's discussion has been informative for our audience and potential investors. Oye, thank you for sharing your expertise on this important topic. Key takeaways for those looking to expand into African markets are number 1, to Oye's points, make sure that you do your research. And once you have the research in place, make sure that you identify potential industry partners. Understand regulatory environments in the market that you want to go to. So if it's Nigeria, understand what that means. If it's in Ghana, understand. If it's the whole of Africa, every country has their own regulatory requirements. So make sure you understand that. Oye also mentioned that you have to develop a very clear value proposition. Who is going to take advantage of the product or services you are bringing to Africa? You have to think about all that and what is in it for them. Leverage those digital platforms for outreach and connection. Oye mentioned the networking. You got to network to really understand the mindsets of the people that you are trying to do business with. And of course, attend those networking events to build relationships. So once again, we hope that you found today's session valuable. Stay connected with Tech Hub Africa for future learning, networking, which Oye mentioned, and business growth opportunities. And of course, follow us on all of our social media platforms. So on behalf of all of us here at Tech Hub Africa, we have Elisha, we have Kingsley, we have Jemima. As part of the Tech Hub team on the call, we say thank you for your time, Oye, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the days and months ahead. Thank you so much. And to our audience, as always, thank you for being a big part of the Tech Hub Africa community. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Africa, we are flying high. With every line of code, we touch the sky. We're the acrobats of the digital age. Tech Hub Africa, turning the page. Balancing the scales of innovation and art. With every step and every leap, we're reaching the heart of the digital future, where Africa takes the lead. Tech Hub Africa, the possibilities are free. Tech